Thanks a lot for the presentations.
Just to start, if the government sticks with the proposal of 80-cent increase, is it fair to say that they are, deciding on a real term pay decrease for the lowest paid workers in the state?
So between the 2022 and the income in 2023, we would have had to see a 15% increase. We're not going to see that. We're just going to see about 9%. Now, we have been told, and it is correct, that wages can't chase inflation, and that's why we had, the 11 billion budget package only 2 weeks ago, and the bulk size of that, the lion's share of that, was cost of living measures. But as I mentioned, a low-paid minimum wage workers, first of all, they're not going to benefit from the 1.1 billion tax package because they don't earn enough to get that 800 euros per year, and because they're mostly young and part-time migrants and women, they're not going to benefit from a lot of the cost of living packages. So if you're a single worker, no children, you're not going to get the benefits of the 25% reduction in childcare, which we really welcome. The move to free school books, again, which we usually welcome. You might get the benefits of the wage or the income disregards increases in the medical cards, so you may be able to get free GP care, free at the point of use, and you'll get the reduction in public transport. And if you're able to live outside the family box room, you may see the benefit of the tax relief. So you have workers that are earning too little to benefit from the tax package, the very generous tax relief package, and because of their circumstances, aren't going to benefit from the cost of living, a lot of the cost of living measures, and the vast majority won't be on social welfare income supports if they're working full-time. So they're caught in between those two stools of their wages is the only avenue available for keeping up their living standards. And in that respect, the decline in the real wage is really important to this cohort of group. We absolutely understand what government was trying to do with the budget, and it goes back to Deputy O'Reilly's part about public sector workers agreeing to a below inflation increase. Many of those workers are going to benefit from the childcare package, the free school books, and the other very good cost of living, permanent cost of living measures around that social wage that government have introduced. But for this cohort of workers, their wage packet is their only buffer to keeping their living standards.
And what would you two call on the government to do in the finance bill? What level of increase?
Well, our colleagues on the Low Pay Commission have recommended €12, and €12 is just to keep them standing still, to keep them where they were in 2021. And that's what we've said. And then to look again at our rollout, our phasing in of this living wage.
Earlier on you mentioned about a consensual approach and the problems with that. Just to unpack that a little bit, right, because the unions didn't agree with this increase. So that doesn't look very consensual, whereby the force representing the vast majority of workers in this country, representing workers in this country who make up the vast majority, their consent wasn't granted to this inadequate wage increase. So can you explain that?
Well, it's majority rules.
Okay.
As you know, at the ballot box, not everybody has to vote for you, but once enough people do, you get to see at the table. So it's the same, and you know, to be fair, you know, it's a year of work put in coming to that decision. It's not a show of hands around. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. But there is a lot of trying to balance, as Deputy Bruton laid out there. It is about, you know, the cost for employers to make sure that it is adequate but sustainable. It's really important.
Just to say, if you look back at the history of the Low Pay Commission's reports, there have been on nearly every occasion, either a minority report, either on behalf of an employer group, behalf of an independent, or on behalf of union representatives. So it's not an unusual thing for that to happen. Employers have done it as well. So.
Something you mentioned earlier, which I think is a very important part of the adequate minimum wages directive, is this thing around increasing the total number of workers covered by collective bargaining. So in the directive it sets out that basically the government should provide a framework for enabling conditions for collective bargaining, either by law, after consultation with the social partners, or by agreement with them, and should establish an action plan to promote collective bargaining. Where is that at? What level of consultation is taking place with the unions?
So we estimate that collective bargaining coverage in the economy is somewhere between 32, 35, around 40, 40% at its maximum. So in advance of the directive, there has been engagement at a high level group, kind of comprising employer representatives and union representatives, and there's three very important recommendations that the government have now accepted around how they increase collective bargaining coverage. So it's increasing the use of the Joint Labour Committee system and removing the veto that employers have from the operation of that system. Increasing the adequacy of the 2015 legislation, kind of where you can make a claim to the Labour Court if your employer refuses to engage in collective bargaining, and making that process much easier. But more importantly, to encourage and to provide a legislative framework for good faith bargaining, where employers will be required to negotiate, have discussions with union representatives, where unions represent employees in an enterprise. So people remember the Lloyd's Pharmacy dispute, where that employer just simply kind of refused, and there's been several of these disputes, but the most recent one has been in Lloyd's Pharmacy, where that employer just simply refused to negotiate with the union who represented workers. That will not be possible anymore if the report of the high level group is transposed into law in the way that the high level group report envisages it will. There are other provisions in the directive around how you use public procurement to increase collective bargaining coverage as well. How that's to be done is yet to be worked out, but as you say, the directive is a very important directive, and the transposition of that directive will be crucially important. So members of the Oireachtas will have a strong role in ensuring that the provisions of the high level group are implemented, and that active measures to increase collective bargaining coverage are put in place.
Thanks a lot.